That seems fine. Hey, what's up YouTube? Dan the Fix-It Man. Got another quick video here for you. We got a 2004 Toyota Avalon here, and we got a front wheel bearing that's bad. And we're gonna replace this in a parking lot. So I'm gonna show you how easy it is to do. You just have to rent some tools from your local auto parts store and should be able to get this done, no problem. See how much play we have there? Bearing is definitely bad. We're gonna pull the brakes off and then we're gonna take off this axle nut. If you don't have an impact, you might wanna try to break this loose before taking off the brakes. You can have somebody step on the brakes while you turn that, or you can even put the car back on the ground, knock out the little center cap of the wheel and put your socket in through there and break that loose with it still on the ground so it doesn't spin. We have an impact, so it shouldn't be a problem. I'm gonna take off the caliper bracket bolts. Those are a 17. Don't use a chrome socket for that if you're using an impact. And pull these out. Set those aside, and we'll take off the whole caliper with bracket, and we're gonna hang it way up here out of the way. There we go. All right, we're gonna knock the rotor off. Look at all that rust. Okay, that's not working. Well, the rotor doesn't want to come off. It's rusted on there pretty good, but I just happen to have this 3-jaw puller with me. I'm gonna give it a try. There we go. Now, believe it or not, I'm just on the road. I happen to have this. Otherwise, you can also just put in a couple bolts in here that are that size, and this will pop right off. All right, now we can pull out the cotter pin. Oh, look at that. Now, normally these are tightened to 217 foot-pounds. This one came right off, probably because the bearing's gone bad and it's gotten really hot. Normally we have to break those loose, and this was not even tight at all. We're gonna turn the wheel so we can break loose the tie rod end here. Don't reuse these. That's a 17. Go ahead and break that loose. Now you don't need to take it all the way off, because right now we need to hit it right here to break the taper and pop that up. There we go. Just thread that back on, set it out of the way. All right, then we can loosen and remove the wheel speed sensor. And that's nice, that one popped right out. And then this clip, just pull this off. Now, just to give me a little bit more room, I'm gonna remove this 12mm bolt so we can hang that up out of the way. See, that clips our brake line and also the ABS line. So now both of these are free and they're a little bit farther out of the way for us. Now we need to loosen and remove these two nuts and bolts right here that mount the lower part of the strut to the knuckle. And those are 22mm. Now I'm gonna leave this one in for a minute, and we're gonna come down underneath and disconnect the lower ball joint. Essentially, all we're trying to do is get the room so that we can push the axle out. Oh, look at that, that's great. Sometimes you have to really break those loose. This is perfect that this will come right out. We could do this on the vehicle without taking out the lower ball joint, but I'm just gonna take it out so we can bring it over in an area it's a little bit easier to work. All right, I'm just gonna loosen these two nuts and this bolt here so that we can pull this off from the lower ball joint. You don't actually have to separate the joint here. It's a little bit easier just to unbolt it, and then we'll bolt it back on when we're done. Again, you can do this with it on the vehicle, but it's just a little bit easier. It's also easier for us to film because we're gonna get in the back here too, and there's a lot that I wanna show you. It's gonna be easier just to take the whole thing off. This looks like it's been replaced because these don't look like the standard size bolts or nuts. I think from the factory, they're all either 14 or 17, but these are 15 and these are 18. We should be able to take this hub off now. And now carefully pull out the axle. We should also be able to lift it off of the lower control arm because we got those bolts out. So there's our hub out of the way, and take a look at that. Major carnage there. This thing is more than bad. And if you look over here, you see that? This little piece, that's part of the bearing. That was stuck on the axle. So make sure if you do have something like this that comes apart or completely falls apart, make sure you don't leave any pieces of the bearing on the axle. So yeah, wow, look at that. Of course, this is destroyed and we know that this is bad, but if you get your hub off and you just spin it, shouldn't make any noise like that. Obviously we had the major play too, but sometimes you'll just have a bad noise. Let's go get the bearing tool and pull out this old hub and change out that bearing. Here's the kit. I just picked this up at our local O'Reilly's. EverTough Master Wheel Hub and Bearing Remover and Installer Kit. Part number is 67213. This is a free tool rental. You just have to basically put down a deposit, which is the cost of the tool, and they will refund that to you when you return it. So huge thanks to O'Reilly for letting us rent this. This is the hub removal tool right here. And this little horseshoe adapter is what we need. Now to take off our hub, that's the first thing we're gonna do. You basically get this part here, this big bracket, and you see it's got these bolts right here because these pieces, these plates are interchangeable. Just so happens it's set up on F, and that's the one that we need to fit around our hub. Just for kicks, I just wanted to double check. So D doesn't quite fit over the shoulder here, and E looks like it's a little too loose. So the right one for us is already set up on the tool. So then we need to also grab the force screw here and the nut. Now it's important that you do grease the force screw. You just don't want that to bind up while you're doing this. So we're gonna put this up like this. We'll put this right through like so. All right, so we got a 27 here. This one looks a little rough. It's been beat up before, but we need to get something on there. I can't get the 24 socket on here. They've really mangled this up, and I don't want to really try filing that or change anything. So I'm going to use a crescent wrench on this side just to keep that from moving. As we tighten it, that should pop it and separate it. But let's give it a try. There we go. Now, of course, that came out with pieces of the bearing because it always does, but let's take this one off. Okay, well, we got it. There's the hub. If you're gonna reuse your hub, you're gonna need to get this part of the bearing off. It's a little bit of a pain. What you can do is just get a grinder and cut it right here and then crack it. Or if you have a bearing separator or a puller, sometimes you can free that and reuse the hub. In our case, our kit came with a new hub, so we're just gonna put in the new one. This one is probably fine, but just to not have to mess with it, I'm gonna go ahead and just toss this and use the one that came in the kit. Even if you're on a bit of a budget, the spindle kit that O'Reilly sells that comes with the hub, comes with a new nut, comes with a new snap ring and everything. That's the route that we're going, and that's what I would recommend. It's still fairly inexpensive, about 85 bucks for everything. All right, now we do have our snap ring in here, but in order to take that out, we need to take off this little dust shield right here. Notice right here, see this hole? That lines up with the wheel speed sensor for the ABS. So try not to break this or bend it up too much because we do need to reuse that. There we go. Came right out. See right there, this is our snap ring, and these come out with needle nose pliers. We're just going to use a little screwdriver in there to help us get it out, and I'm covering it with my hand so that it doesn't shoot up in the air. There we go. All right, now we need to press out the bearing here, or the rest of the bearing, what's left of it. It only will come out this way, so we need to get set up with the right tools on that bearing kit, and then we're going to use that same force screw and press it out. This ring here, positioned on the outside just like that, and then this is the cap that will fit in over here. Now we can extend that a little bit if needed. In our case, I'm going to do it just because of the force screw. I can't get a socket on this side, and I'm using my deep socket for this side, so I'm spacing it like this. We're going to put it through. For the other side, you just have to find the one that fits, and this is our step washer. The label's rubbed off, but just find one that fits that diameter and goes in, so it's only going to be pulling the bearing. Don't get anything out here, but I'm going to space this out so that I can use this and still use my impact. So right now I'm just going to put on these step washers just as spacers basically, and then this should just thread right on. There we go. Now again, they say not to use an impact on this, and everybody does, but it's really the only way that we have to get this done right now. All right, there's the old bearing. What's left of it, at least. Now we're gonna spend some time and clean this up. We just wanna make sure we have a really clean surface before we press in the new bearing. Some people will heat this up or put it in the oven and freeze the bearing, but Just a little bit of penetrating oil works pretty well. This is PB Blaster. It's good for cleaning it and also will lubricate that bearing when it goes in. Okay, so I've got it all set up here. Then we're gonna put our bearing in. That's nice and centered, nice and straight. Try to make that snug at first just to verify that everything, it looks perfectly straight, which it does. Now we ran out of depth here for our impact. It feels like we've got it started and it looks pretty straight. Just go kind of nice and slow here and see how it looks. Yeah, we got it. It's going in now. Now we might have to back this off and put on another spacer, but okay, we're not all the way there yet, but I'm gonna pull this off and put another spacer on there. There we go. Bottomed out. Now we can back this off. Take these off. All right, there it is. There's the new bearing all the way out to the edge. That is perfect. Now our kit came with a snap ring, but it is the type here with holes in it, and I just don't have the right snap ring pliers for that right now. I do have them at the shop, but we're just going to reuse the old one. There's no corrosion or damage on this, so we're going to just put this one right back in. So just kind of position it down in place and squeeze it together. There we go. Snaps right into place. As long as you have the bearing seated properly, you shouldn't have to fuss with that. You shouldn't have to pound that. You don't want to damage your brand new bearing. I saw another video where someone put this snap ring in and then it didn't go all the way in. They either didn't clean that out or they didn't seat the bearing all the way, and they ended up pounding this snap ring and they ended up damaging the bearing. All right, so here's our new hub and it's all ready to go in. We just need to get one of these that will ride on the inner race of the bearing, which this one does. And we're gonna flip this over to this side, and then this basically just presses right in there. So we just need to put the force screw through that. I think what we'll do is just this cap right here. That looks like it'll work just fine. Let's put our force screw through there. Now, because we're using the impact and we have to use a socket, I'm just gonna stack some more of these spacers on the side. There we go. And then we're gonna put the nut on the end, and all we need to do is just tighten that. There you go. You'll feel it when it bottoms out. Then we can back the tool off. We are good to go. When we put our axle nut on, that's gonna also pull our spindle in a little bit more. All right, and then we can put this ring back in, and it's just important that you line the hole up here with the hole right here where the ABS sensor goes, right like that, and then just try not to bend it. Should just tap into place. Looks good. All right, then we can just lift the hub back up into place. At the same time, I'm just lining up these bolts here with the lower ball joint, and then that will just kind of help me push the axle all the way through, and then just shift over here and put in these bolts here in the bottom of the strut. There we go. I'll just get those threaded on. There we go. All right, then the tie rod here, just line that up and get that started. Then we can reinstall the little nuts here on the lower ball joint mount. And then we got the one bolt right here. Take your time on this, lining it up. Just make sure you don't cross thread that bolt. That's just kind of being a little difficult. Now the spec on the stock ones is 55 foot-pounds, but because these are the aftermarket, or these are the larger ones, it says that you can torque these to 68. So that's what we're gonna do, 68. All right, we're gonna tighten these ones here. just gonna get these snug with the impact. And then we need to torque these to 156 foot-pounds. All right, for the outer tie rod end, these need to be torqued to 36 foot-pounds, but we're gonna also go beyond that in order to line up our cotter pin if needed. Okay, there's 36. So now we need to look. So we don't have the opening exposed, so we just need to turn that past until we can line that up. There it is. That lined up perfect. So we just gotta pull that cotter pin all the way through. Now the dust shield is kind of in the way on this. That's okay. And I'm gonna cut this side here. All right, now we can put this little 12mm bolt back in that holds that ABS line and our brake hose in place, and just make it snug. All right, now these little plastic arms with a little part that sticks out, they go into either side of this bottom of the strut that has a little place. They basically just clip in, just like that. All right, and then we can put the ABS sensor back in. Just line it up right like that. And it's a little 10mm bolt. Just get that started. And just make it snug. I'm just gonna put a little bit of this anti-seize on the face of the hub here. That really seems to help prevent the rotors from getting stuck like that last one. All right, now we're gonna put on the new spindle nut that they give us. Now, you don't wanna put this on with an impact as far as tightening. I'm just gonna make it snug at a really low setting. Now, once we get the rotor on and everything back on the ground, we're gonna torque this to 217 foot-pounds. And we can put that on. All right, now on the caliper bolts, I do like to put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads just to keep those from backing off. All right, and then we can take our caliper down, unhook it, and line that up. Hopefully we can get that over the rotor. Yep, there we go. We'll put these in. Just get your caliper bolts started by hand. And then we're gonna torque the caliper bolts to 79 foot-pounds. There we go. All right, now they recommend that you replace this axle nut or spindle nut every time you do this. The issue for us is I put this on and tightened it, but it didn't allow me to put this little cap on in order to line up with the hole in the axle and put in a new cotter pin. So this is also that thin flange that you can pound down and bend when there's like a key. We don't have that. Ours is designed to take this little cap that we can put in a cotter pin and lock it and prevent it from backing out. So in our case, we're gonna have to reuse this, and we're gonna go ahead and put this on, and we're going to torque this to 217 foot-pounds. Now, as far as tightening this, it's gonna spin your wheel. So what we can do is either step on the brakes or use a screwdriver here in the edge of the rotor, so that when that hits the caliper bracket, it'll stop it from spinning. You know, don't use a nice screwdriver because it might bend, but this one's pretty strong and stout. Another option you could do is you could knock out the center cap here of the wheel and just use an extension and tighten it that way once you have it down on the ground. But this way works fine for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and just get this nice and tight to the 217 foot-pounds. There you go, and now you can see this little cap right here. We just need to turn that or line that up with that hole in the axle right there so that a new cotter pin will slide right through. It's very important that you do not reuse cotter pins. Never ever reuse a cotter pin. Throw that away and get yourself a new one. If that cotter pin breaks from bending back and forth a couple times, your wheel can fly off. So let's just push this one through. I'm gonna cut this side a little short in the back. Make sure that we pull this all the way around. Well, that's pretty much it. Let's put the wheel back on and take it for a test drive. And we just got back from a quick test drive and everything sounds great, nice and smooth, exactly like it should be. This one is good to get back on the road. I hope you liked the video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you don't mind. That does help me out. I'll get a link in the description to some of the parts and tools used in the video as well. Thanks so much for watching and good luck.